Hi, I'm Greg Aronowitz from Barnyard Effects, and this is another episode of What's in My Barn. Today I pulled a bunch of movie logos out of my barn. You may be wondering, how exactly did I pull a movie logo from my barn? Because I know in your mind you're thinking it's just a computer file. They weren't always done by computer. It was only a decade ago that we still had to do a lot of stuff by hand. So all of those famous movie logos that we have infused in our mind, like Indiana Jones and Star Wars and Back to the Future with those really cool typefaces that now you can just Google and find, somebody had to create those and actually draw them. So I have some examples that I want to share. So this is the original logo for the Sting 2, and it's a large piece of art because they would do it really big to make sure that when it was shrunk down for the poster, for the newspaper, all the lines stayed really crisp. This is done in pen and ink, and there's actually Letraset, which would be plastic vinyl that you would plastic vinyl on wax paper that you would kind of scratch to make stick to your paper. So these lines that are really clean, you can see on the one side, they're actually peeling off because it was like 20 years old. But they'd just be rubbed on there. And then any mistakes that were made were just white paint, like whiteout, was painted over it. So this looks like something that was really tight and created in the computer, but it was all drawn by hand. So this one was either the original drawing that was then colored later, or it was just a black and white for things like newspapers where they didn't have color. So this is another version of the Sting 2. This is the color artwork. So it's a shrunk down version of the black and white, also all done by hand, and then airbrushed. So this is done in pen and ink and in acrylic. And this would have been used on the final poster or any kind of marketing stuff that was done in color. Here's one of my favorite pieces. This is the title from Conan, the Arnold Schwarzenegger Barbarian movie. This is all done, again, with airbrush and Frisket and acrylic paint and some colored pencil. And, again, it's just hard to remember, hard to imagine a time when if you wanted a specific kind of typeface, you couldn't just Google it and alter it and just work off of that. But when they wanted to create this thing which is instantly recognizable, if you're a fan of Conan, if you see this C, you know it's from Conan. But somebody had to sit down and design it and draw this by hand and paint it. But this is the original painting, and it was photographed, and then this is what ended up on all the posters and the books and the magazine covers, and everywhere you saw this logo, it started with this piece of art. So here's a classic we can all relate to in our nerd community, Revenge of the Nerds. I like this one because it's kind of the whole framing of the poster, but the top ended up being the logo. But it really is like a complete piece of art, and the rock texture and all the details I don't know. I have no words, but you'll have to look at it really close to see the amount of time that someone put in to actually render this piece that is ultimately just the logo of the movie. But this is what you look at and think of all the great parts of the movie. All right, well, everybody needs one of these. Vacation. This is from National Lampoon's Vacation with Chevy Chase as Clark Griswold. And this was basically trying to capture that kind of, Americana postcard touristy thing with all of the letters having a different place in the country to where they arrive on their trip. So again, all done by hand, and this is pen and ink and then acrylic with airbrush. And what I like about this piece, other than it's one of my favorite comedy movies, is at some point when the artist delivered this, somebody decided that they were going to make a change. And again, no Photoshop, there's no step backs or edits. It had to all be done by hand. So we have an overlay here where they recreated the V and the N and made the final logo. So photographically, they just would have added that in. And what's really interesting is that the change, originally when I got the piece, I thought that the change was like a completely different environment or something, but they just took Hollywood and the city and swapped them. So some executive somewhere, after this artist did all this hard work, was like, you know what? Let's just change the N and the V. I don't know why. So that's just some of my hand-drawn movie logo art. I have plenty more to show you, so if you want to see it, like the video below, and let me know other movies that you might want to see stuff from, because I'm sure I have some in my barn.